It's the clock PM and I'm turning the recorder on. This is December 5th, 2023. This is the Bluff Town Council regular meeting. Roll call.
Linda Sosa.
Jim Sayers.
Luanne Hook.
Brant Murray.
Ann Leppanen.
Erin Nelson, serving as town manager.
The first thing is the approval of the Bluff Town Council regular meeting minutes of November 14th, 2023. Has everyone read them? Are there any changes, corrections, modifications?
Motion to approve.
Mayor, I'll second that.
Any discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Public comment, there will be a 3-minute time limit for each person wishing to make a public comment. If you exceed the 3-minute time limit without permission, the meeting controller will mute you. Signal the meeting before it starts by putting your name in the chat box or raising your hand. Erin, are there any public comments?
It looks like we have one from Mr. Jim Hook.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Hook.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would like to thank the mayor for the wonderful gift she gave me the other day, the cheese and stuff. That was really nice. And I would like to point out that even though as co-chair of the town weed board and I'm asleep, I don't even care about weeds right now, Mr. Ed is still out there digging goat heads. The other day I came by on my way heading to the west, and with the light in my eyes, I really couldn't see that well, as we know, the sun going down these times of day. And there was Ed standing along the sidewalk or the highway by the road shed, chopping out goat heads. I didn't see him until he was right there. So I've made a co-chair weed decision, and I bought a men working sign. Joe Paycheck says he's going to paint a goat head on it so that we know that it's Ed working, that I've given to Ed to put up when he's working along the edge of the highway. I'll be sending that invoice onto the town, and hopefully with our $1,000 that you have budgeted for the weed council, you'll reimburse that. If not, that's fine too. But thanks, Ed. Thanks, council, and good luck with 2024.
Sure.
Thanks. Jim makes a really good point. I think probably in the work session, let's just have a 5-minute discussion on how we can help Ed Dobson out there, because he's hard to see, one, when he's crouched over, and two, he could really use some help. So let's kind of throw that into the work session for a few minutes. Then number 1 is the unfinished business of the canvas. So the report on the December 1st, 2023 canvas in Monticello by the Bluff Town Council, voting on the results, and a discussion of December's work. So we had asked San Juan County to notify us when the canvas would be, meaning they would open ballots or feed them into the machine, open the mail, do whatever. And the response we got was December 1st at 9 o'clock would be the canvas. We did not find out that they had already done all of their work prior to December 1st. So when Linda and Erin went up to Monticello on November 30th, Linda was given a form report that indicated what the unofficial results were. And now, of course, where did I set those? So I followed up on it, and yes, all of the actual tabulations had been done for both Bluff and Monticello. I asked Chris McEnany then to kind of outline what it is that we needed to do in this meeting because the canvas time was up today. However, it was extended by the state because of Thanksgiving to tomorrow. But we still needed to vote. And if we didn't want to call a special meeting, it would need to be tonight. In the meantime, I received from Lyman Duncan another report that had what looked to me to be the preliminary numbers from the date of the election. So that second report had the voting numbers from November 21st. I called Lyman yesterday and talked with him, and he explained that there were problems, that he had used a software program from Florida that tabulated this for him and created this report because it looked much more professional and a little more readable. But the problem was the two sets of numbers didn't match. So I asked, which one should I use? I mean, how am I supposed to know which one to use? And the response I got from Lyman was, use the first one, the one that he handed off to Linda. Well, we didn't count the votes. We didn't see how they were counted, and that was not satisfactory. So the Lieutenant Governor's office has several people on staff, and when I couldn't reach Shelley Jackson yesterday, the head election person for Utah, I ended up talking to Brody and Ryan. There was about a 10-minute hold after I explained the issue. How do I know which set of numbers we're looking at? And they came back on the line and said, you're going to go up to Monticello tomorrow and walk through the election process, looking at the actual machine that does and program that does the tabulation, and get your questions answered there. Well, I had left 2 messages for Shelley Jackson, and this morning at 8:30, she called me back and confirmed that that's what she wanted us to do, was to go up and walk through the process so we could see which set of numbers were the accurate numbers. So Linda and I went up. Well, as soon as I talked to Brody and Ryan, I called San Juan County. I called Mac McDonald's office, and I was told by his aide that he had already left for the day, but he was expecting me between 1:30 and 2 today. So I'm making an assumption that on that 10-minute hold, they contacted Mac and said I would be up. So we went up at about 1:30 and met with Lyman, Duncan, and Peter, who took James Frankum's place. And they showed us the security that they have up there. And I don't want to go into all the detail, but the bottom line was when we were finished, I think it would be very difficult for anyone to mess with votes at this point. It's all recorded. Keys are locked up. There's limited number of keys. 2 people always have to operate everything they're doing. Once they go into the room where the tabulation machine, which is called a machine that runs the election, where you really can't do much. So when they pulled it up on the screen, that's the result. That shows the results that were sent to the state, and the ones that Linda was given. Those are the correct numbers. So Linda will walk through what the report looks like so we can all see it. And then we have a number of steps to do. When I asked about the discrepancy, how was a second report created, Lyman said he'd used a software program that was new to him to make the report look better, and it must have picked up the numbers. But the official numbers with the state that have been recorded are on the electionware. I asked about spoiled votes and how they handle those. We asked about the hand counting. Everything checked out. So I feel personally, I feel very comfortable with the process and very comfortable with what the result report looks like. So Linda, do you want to give the results?
Yes, these are the election results as reported on the election for the November 21st election. Jennifer Davila, 79 or 78. Britt Hornsby, 84. Gary Lichtenstein, 68. Wes Shook, 51, for a total of 281 votes cast.
Do you need a motion to approve this, Mayor?
Not yet. Thank you, though. I will in a minute. So I did not observe any irregularities, and I didn't have any further questions. We spent about an hour plus, maybe an hour and a half with them. Again, I didn't see anything. Linda, did you have any questions or notice any irregularities?
No, they were very complete, and they even have cameras, several cameras in the room that we were in. So they are taking this very seriously.
So I apologize. I did not have these sent out ahead of time because it was too confusing to send out to. And quite honestly, I didn't realize that I hadn't sent anything out on the tallies. So Erin, are you able to just pull that up on your screen so folks can see what this report looked like?
Yes, give me just 1 second.
Thank you.
Okay, there we are. And you'll notice that it does have Monticello's numbers on here as well, as they also had a municipal election.
Can you zoom in a little, Erin? A couple more. That's getting better. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks.
And so does anyone on the council have any questions about those numbers or the process that was used?
I have one question just from this chart. It shows 281 and then 302. And I just wonder, it doesn't have a total, but I'm just wondering what the percentage turnout was and if 302 votes were cast, 302 voters showed up, or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah, generically I do. The 302 are the number of votes that they received. The 17 undervotes, I believe some people just voted for one candidate. You could vote for two. The overvotes, the four people voted and their ballots were not considered because they overvoted. I think, let me just look here, Lou. We got back late.
No, that's fine. That makes total sense. So there were 302 ballots received. I wonder how many. It just seems like a very high percentage, and I was just wondering what the voter turnout was. But you don't need to look now.
It was very high. It was something like 85%. I wrote it down when he said it, but of course I can't find it right now. But it was like 85%. But it makes sense when you remember that everybody had two votes. So there's about 190 registered voters, I think, and then two votes would make it pretty reasonable. So the next step is but does anybody else have a question?
No, I'm willing to take make a motion now to accept that.
Okay, well, I have one last thing. So attached to this report is Lyman Duncan's signature as county clerk, dated today, December 5th, 2023. Notice of election results, 2023 Bluff general election. I hereby certify that the information contained in the attached report is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief. we are then required to vote to accept it. If we do not accept it, we need to have a material mistake or irregularity. And then I will call the Lieutenant Governor office tomorrow. So, Jim,
Motion to accept?
Second.
we have to do a voice roll call. So I'll start with Luanne,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Brant,
Aye.
myself, Ann, aye. Are there any opposed? Then it's unanimous. There are a couple other steps that have to be done. Linda will be sending Britt Hornsby and Jen Davila letters telling them that they are now going to be taking office on the 2nd of January. We have to send the report in, but I need to have everybody sign the report. So that's going to be a little tricky with Brant out of town. But I will talk with Erin and Linda and we'll coordinate it so that maybe I'll just take it around to those of us who are here. But we all have to sign off on it physically somehow.
Mayor, I can e-sign that thing. I've got a way to e-sign, so if you need me to, I can sign it electronically.
Okay, good. So I will see what we need to do to get that done.
The other thing I wanted to say is congratulations and thank the candidates and congratulations to the winners. Look forward to working with each of you guys.
Well, I really thank all 4 of them for stepping up. It's not a particularly fun process and it takes a lot of time. So thank you to all 4. And we look forward to working with Jen and Britt as well.
I ditto both of those.
Good.
Appreciate the support for stepping up. So, thank you.
I was beginning to worry we wouldn't have anybody. All right, then the next thing is the discussion and vote on extending AmeriCorps team from January 8th to February 22nd of 2024. And then if we decide that we are going to extend them, we have to talk about paying for the housing. So last week I got a call from Sacramento office from the person who coordinates this region, Justin Mazzola. And he said that the higher ups felt like some areas are getting the teams too frequently. They don't like to dispatch a team more than once a year to a geographic area. And ours was last year. So I figured he was going to tell us that we weren't in the running anymore. Instead, he asked if we could extend ours for the 2nd month, which we had proposed going to community rebuilds in Moab. I felt really awkward about it, but they were not going to give community rebuilds that month because community rebuilds has had a team pretty much consistently the last couple of years and throughout the year. So I told him I would talk about it, but I felt like we had plenty of work for the team and that if we could talk about it tonight and say yes or no. So the team would be here from January 8th and leave probably the 22nd, although they might leave the 21st like the other teams have taken 2 days to drive. I've confirmed with St. Christopher's Mission through Diane Ben and Father Jack Chase that the housing would be available for February. So what we'd be looking at is probably $6,000 instead of $3,000 for housing. Because Justin asked me to update the scope of work, I went ahead and kicked something out Sunday or yesterday that outlined the scope of work. If either Britt or Jen are listening, too bad, too sad. I've assigned you a job in this program, assuming we vote to accept it. I kept you, both of you, though, with something that's not terribly time consuming, 1 day or maybe 2 days each, but that was it. So again, the scope of work can be changed and moved around, but if we don't have it in the scope, I have to amend the document. So I figured I'd cover as much as I could, as fast as I could. And I hope everybody has had a chance to look at it. It was in the packet, I think, that Erin sent out.
I did see it, and it looked pretty good. And it looks like you've got Melanie, the food person for UDB, as a sort of a co-supervision, which is really nice. I assume she knows about that, right?
She does.
Yeah. So this, I think it's going to work out. There's probably going to be plenty of work, and there's housing, and this looks like it's going to be a winner. Do you need a vote on this?
I do, because I'm asking to extend it and spend more money.
I make that motion, and I think the $6,000 is going to be a very reasonable expense for the if we get the kind of work that we're looking at. It's all over town. Thank you. I make that motion.
I'll second the motion, Mayor, but I'm not going to be as active this year as I was last. I will work with these guys, but I was going to see if any other council wanted to second before I did. But I second.
And I should add that because this is the housing is an expense that UDB is getting the benefit for the CCC, for the Cooperative Cultural Center, there'll be some payment from them as well. So it won't be the full 6,000. So all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous, and I'll notify Justin tomorrow, and then we'll move forward with the meeting later in the week with him to finalize the contract. Then the next item is a report on the status of the Bluff Community Center renovations and the County Senior Center repair. I think, Erin, if you wouldn't mind taking that, I think you're a little more familiar with where we are.
So the senior center is fully renovated. They have new flooring and new tile in the bathroom. It looks fantastic. Flooring is installed throughout the back office area, and work is still being done in the bathrooms. Weldon Builders has indicated that they think they will be pretty much done with the office areas by the end of this week or early next week. And I think it's possible that the bathrooms might take a little bit longer. But we did issue the check for the halfway point, and then the contract, once everything is completely finalized, the final third of the contract will be paid out. And so we want to just make sure everything's finished there. And yeah, I think things are going well. I know the senior center indicated that they were really happy to have that updated space and will better suit their clients. So very, very optimistic about the entire project. Any questions?
No, I just would like to say, I know it's been hard, particularly for Erin and Linda, to not be able to work in the offices. So I really appreciate your flexibility. The work is beautiful. It's getting done on a timely basis, and we should be able to move in and be there by the start of the year and close off some of our other projects. So thanks, Erin. Linda, do you have anything to add?
No. Well, it does look really, they're doing a really good job, basically. The floors are done. That was a hard piece. And so now they're doing various painting and in the restrooms.
Okay, then moving to the report on the status of ARPA funds and the request for a final payment. We had $58,000 in ARPA funds, slightly more than that. Half of that was from the state match, which we have much more accountability to than the feds on this one. And then the other half was the federal. And the purpose of it was to have a food pantry and accessible bathrooms and some other things. So we are well underway with the first payment that we had to make to Weldon Builders. That took up pretty much all of our ARPA funds that we had. So then Erin, thank you, because I never could figure out these spreadsheets. She was able to get the request in for the other percent. I think is it 5%? they withheld 5%. And so the project is completed. In the state's mind, we got an email saying, looks like your project was done November 30th because we spent the money, and go ahead and get your last 5%. So we should be able to coordinate the ARPA fund grant closing with the insurance issue on the senior center and be able to close those off all by the first of the year. Any questions or thoughts on that?
Great job.
Yeah.
Great job getting
Way to
that
go.
done.
Well, I'm not kidding when I say trying to do spreadsheets and all that. Erin, she earns her pay on those days in my mind, the whole pay on that single day, because I cannot do it. And we would still be without those funds. So thanks, Erin, for that great work.
It's great to see things get finished. Move on.
Yeah. Well, then if we can go to the next one, which is the wrap-up discussion and vote on Javiation Maxwell UDOT final payment. I left off the UDOT. We received a notice that they'd gone over budget a little bit. See if I can find the note. So UDOT's payment would be an additional $741.06, and the town's payment would be $82.34. And so UDOT has approved that payment of $741.06. And I'm asking for approval to pay the $82.34. And then when that's done, assuming that all the invoices are reconciled at that point, again, that might be something we can close off in December.
Is that a motion you're needing?
It is.
So made.
I'll second Jim's motion.
So the motion is to pay the $82.34. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And Jim Hook, if you're still on the line, thank you for watching over this and getting it to this point. So everybody should go out and look at the work that was done. It looks very nice. Then Lou,
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks everyone for making that go. It's a great space out there. Go have a sandwich out there someday.
I heard that Luanne serves great lunches out there. All right, moving to number 6, Clean Energy Fuels Grant to Canyonlands Discovery Center for the Arundel removal in Bluff and AmeriCorps possibility. Lou, go ahead with that one.
All righty. Yes, so Canyonlands Discovery Center applied for the grant with Clean Energy Fuels. They're the ones that are the recipients, and they're the ones that will pay their crews and whatnot. And the project that they put forth was to come to Bluff and work on these noxious weeds, getting rid of the arundo. They awarded them that grant, and so that will be happening this spring once the arundo starts growing. But in the meantime, we need anybody that has a patch that wants help to get rid of it, or if you know a neighbor that maybe isn't aware that it's required to get rid of it, let them know, let me know that you would like to be added to the list, and we'll start accumulating those people and prioritize it as people want the help. So that's the only update on that, really. But I just wanted to, they weren't picked in the first round for our project, but they were in some second round and were winners of that grant.
Great.
They'll be here about a week is about what they were funded for.
And then like I put in the scope of work as if we've got anything for AmeriCorps to do. Unfortunately, Luanne, I plugged you in without talking to you about being supervisor. And anybody that I plugged into that, we can talk about it after we sign the contract and figure out who can't do whatever I assigned. Tim and Irene Hamilton are on there. And Jim Sayers, I kind of pushed some stuff on the garden, so I can talk about it. Nothing's set in stone.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And what it does is gives us more time. So, people that want it all dug out and not cut and sprayed, one of the things that could happen first before the winter, before it starts growing, which would be when the AmeriCorps kids would be here, would be to cut it and remove it so that bulk is gone. That would be a great thing, but we need to have permission from private property owners to get on, and there's still quite a few big patches in town. So if you don't know what we're talking about, happy to send you some videos or whatever, but we're trying to keep it from being the next tamarisk, Russian olive, that sort of thing along the river riparian area especially. So
And
it's required. It's a requirement of the state.
Erin, did you have something?
Just a clarifying question. So, Luanne, is this work scheduled for the AmeriCorps team that we are bringing on, or is this a separate AmeriCorps team through Canyon Country?
It's not AmeriCorps with Canyon Country. It's their young adult conservation corps or something to that effect. But yeah, it's their team. They employ mostly Native kids, and they have a whole program. They take them all over the region, and so that was their ask to Clean Energy, is that they would give them a week to fund this team to come to Bluff to get rid of this weed as one of their projects. And then they'll move on to the next project.
So we should be, hopefully if people sign up to have us on their property, we should be able to make a pretty big dent in things between the AmeriCorps and the Discovery Center.
Mm-hmm. It would be great. And we got a good, the last time that the AmeriCorps kids worked on it, they got a lot of it cleaned out, but there's still a lot more to do. So look around, look at your neighbors, look around, give us a holler, and we can start making some plans. AmeriCorps will be here really quickly, so we need to kind of get on that faster than just this Canyon Country Discovery Group.
All right, if there's nothing else on that, we'll move to number 7, discussion of rural communities opportunity grant application, and that's for Erin.
Yeah, so this was an interesting opportunity that was presented by Colette Cox. Many of you probably remember her from our strategic planning initiative. And she approached me actually just after your last town council meeting in November, saying that she had this grant opportunity. She thought of Bluff specifically because of our strategic planning initiative and all of the work that's planned for the CCC building. And she highly encouraged us to apply for this grant. The award amount could be up to $600,000, but it had to be specifically addressing economic development. So this is through the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And so with about 2 days time, I put together quite a lot of information, much of which would mirror some of the information that we developed for the EPA grant regarding the building, but with this lens of economic opportunity. And so what ended up being submitted was a request for $445,000 from the state to help with areas of the building that would specifically benefit economic development. So this would be areas including those satellite offices that we've talked about, business incubation space, workforce, child care center, and a retail art gallery for local artisans and goods entrepreneurs. This really is a good overlap of our partnership with Utah Diné Bikéyah. So certainly some of these projects would be driven by them, and then certain ones would certainly benefit the municipal government functions, having these satellite offices for folks to come down from the county or state level. So you all should have received a copy of this grant application. According to Colette, we'll have about 2 months or so until the Governor's Office of Economic Development makes any selections. And at that time, I would, we'll bring it to the council that you would want to approve this grant. I sincerely apologize for the short time frame. But as I said, most of this documentation very much mirrors other grants that we've put in. One thing to note is this grant does have a matching component. I'm sorry for my paper shuffling. So I did submit that a matching component we would have in kind, which would come from the town manager and project coordinator salaries, AmeriCorps in kind, time donation, as well as a match. We can use part of the EPA grant as a match. And so they required a 10% match for a municipality. We submitted what would be an 18% match to this program. So like I said, quite quick to get this in, but we are requesting $445,000 for renovations. Similar to EPA, it is very much focused on, this is 100% focused on renovations to the building. So we're talking construction and renovations, as well as some furnishings. There's money written in for some furnishings, which is, I think, maybe the first grant that is referencing that, which is exciting. We would have 2 years to spend these funds. Questions from the council?
Great work.
Yeah, way to go.
Way to go. Good job.
Yeah, I appreciate you being flexible enough to just drop everything else and whip that out, because it did come off. It doesn't look whipped out at all. It's reads really well and looks good.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your trust in me. And I think, especially given that we were directly contacted by someone who works for the office and told that this was a good fit, it did feel like a worthy endeavor. And so, hopefully we've got a strong enough case of, driving this economic development in the region with this building that they would select us. Colette did also say, she recognized that this was a quick turnaround. She said, if you don't get it this year, that it's an annual grant, you can apply again. And if anything, it would prove that you really do need the funds. If you needed to apply, it would not be a mark against you if you needed to reapply on the same project. So we certainly would have that opportunity if this comes up again, and with much more notice.
It's interesting that it came up right after we'd had our last meeting. So the choice that we had was I could call a special meeting, and I know we were all exhausted, and I figured if Erin's willing to do it and find the time, which I have no idea how she managed to do it, go ahead and go for it. It can't hurt. And then, as Erin said, if we're not selected this year, we can put it in again next year, which may be, from an accounting view and where we are with the EPA, it might actually work more to our benefit if we didn't get it this year and we got it next year. But it would be nice to be awarded it now. I'm not saying I'd turn it down, and Erin did not drop everything. I hate to tell you that, Lou. Erin continued to work her usual job and get this done. So, it was a great grant. Thank you, Erin.
Well, the difference between that and just applying for any old grant is that it's very applicable to what we're working on right this minute. So there wouldn't be any reason for a controversy or anything. So I appreciate you just getting it in and working with her.
Well, Erin did a great job as usual. So now the next one is the report on the Colorado River Authority of Utah Area Representative meeting on November 30th, 2023. I had intended to also join.
Excuse me, Mayor's number 8, something to do with the UDOT.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I already in my brain passed that over. That's good that you're watching that. Number 8, there's been ongoing discussions about the barrier at the Cooperative Cultural Center and removing it. My understanding from talking to Jared Beard a year or two ago is that it's not as simple as making the request. They've got some pretty strong regulations and rules. And so if, I assume, Jim, at the DRC meeting today, you talked about it?
I didn't really talk about it because I really didn't know anything about it. And are you referring to the barriers along the highway, but along the south edge of it?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't have any other information than that, just this this item. So
Damien did he not raise it? He must not have.
Did not.
Okay. Well, so we can bring that up with the DRC. Damien told me, and Woody and Dave have said that they really want those barriers removed. I know Brant wants them removed. I believe it's a long process. Everything with UDOT takes time. And so I thought if people wanted it removed, if the council wants it and UDB wants it, I should probably start working on the process, because the process could take a while. Lou?
Yeah, so I know we've talked about it quite a few times, just it's there for protection for the kids when the kids were there and so on. But it's right in the path of where we've and then something else kind of work together here in the next little bit anyway.
So are you?
Mayor, I appreciate you bringing it up and getting it on the agenda, because it does take things no reason to have them. They're ugly, and so I appreciate you responding to my request.
So anybody else? And Lou, I'm not sure, are you saying you feel like we should wait and see what happens with the request that you have under the active transportation committee?
Well, it might just save some time, because if they're coming in, we'll know within this month probably whether or not they'll be working on our active transportation process to get a bike trail through there and whatnot. And then that's when the engineers and the designers will decide where it's going and what they'll need to do. So, it might just prevent some duplicate efforts if you give it a month or so. If we're not chosen, then that could be a separate job to get rid of those and work on the other later.
Jim, any sense?
It sounds to me like they're going to get rid of them regardless. Is that about right?
Well, it's hard to say, because they'll need to protect the bike route somehow, but they'll be working in that area if they do our plan. So
I'm not interested in Jersey barriers protecting our bike route. Okay,
right.
those things are not what we need to protect our bike route. So I'm going to stop right there.
So do we want to hold off until Active Transportation Advisory Committee gets a thumbs up or down?
My idea is not to hold off, Mayor. I'd like to go ahead and send that request in. UD wants it. DRC wants it. Let's just get it started.
Yeah, if Damien was in favor of it, then if they were only put there for the elementary school, my sense is that UDOT is, it's not an option. They're probably eventually going to get rid of them. The design for the active transportation has not decided the exact route that is going to go along the highway anyway, so that might be down the road a little bit. And go ahead and get rid of them if it's not too much out of our way.
Well, I can go ahead and start the process with finding out what we need to do. And then I'll bring it back once I find out what the process is. We have a new engineer, Dan Hinckley. Jared has moved on to something else, traffic, I think. So I'll get a hold of Dan and talk to him and find out what we need.
That's good.
Yeah,
all right.
That seems like a plan.
All right. Then moving to number 9, report on the Colorado River Authority. I think that Erin and Linda went to that meeting. I got delayed in Moab, so one of you want to give an update?
Well, I thought this was really interesting. It's the basin is the Colorado Basin, and there are 7 states that are affected by the Colorado Basin, where the Colorado River starts and goes through. And so we got a background about how the upper basin states get water and they like to store it. The lower basin states at this meeting, there were 10 people at this meeting. Erin and I, Bruce Adams, Mac McDonald, want to use things. There was someone with a different title. There were water resource people, there were water directors. So we made some we met some people that can help us if we have questions. Erin explained to them really well how our water issues, our aquifer, water, the Navajo Nation, that kind of thing. And so I think it was really helpful. When we are next, these kind of meetings come up from time to time, and it's really important to go to them. Erin and I were the only people that came from a town. Blanding was invited, Monticello was invited. It really makes a difference. So when we have our new council, it's going to be important, I think, that we take turns going to these kind of things.
Erin, do you have anything you want to add or clarify?
Yeah, I think, certainly hearing from the county's perspective, there are concerns about Lake Powell and the economic impacts of where the water levels are was brought up quite a lot. I think Linda did a great summation. We got a lot of background information regarding the history of the acts that have protected the Colorado River and how water is distributed. I think in the future, it's important for us to have a voice at the table to talk about how the San Juan River impacts the region. Of course, that's a tributary to the Colorado River, and certainly a huge impact on our area. And so, towards the end of the meeting, we had time to speak a little bit, but I think in the future we should absolutely attend and really talk about our interactions with the San Juan and in the region in general. But yes, overall, we were the only municipality present to the point where Commissioner Adams asked if they would be meeting with the other municipalities separately, and they said no, everyone was invited to this one. So it's always great that Bluff has a seat at the table. But it very informative, and certainly they did highlight, as we went around the table and introduced ourselves, there were a lot of questions and concerns about water rights. And while this particular group of individuals, that's not what they oversee, they can always connect us to folks who handle water rights. And so, it all plays into the grand scheme of things. But certainly water rights came up a lot in this as well.
Well, thanks both for going. Jim?
Yeah, I would just like to add that I don't think we can overemphasize the importance of these kinds of discussions to the future of this town and the future of this region. This is critical. The water, although it's not in front of us every day, these issues aren't in front of us on a daily or weekly or annual basis. The overall future of this region is it's just extremely important that we find ourselves in these at the table, as Erin points out. Thank you.
One other thing that they mentioned was for us, and we kind of mentioned it, tourism. Water is really important to our tourism, our rafting companies, hikers, and so one other thing.
Well, thanks. That's good that you were able to make it. Then number 10, the report on the San Juan County Commission meeting, which was today. And Erin, do you want to describe the presentation by Lyman Duncan on the voting?
Well, I'll be completely honest with you. As a virtual attendee, there was no audio for that. They appeared to have technical difficulties yet again with their microphones, and even if you go and listen to their YouTube recording, it is inaudible as to what was said. So that's incredibly frustrating. I hope to listen to the audio once they post it to Utah Public Notice website. All in, there wasn't a whole lot else on the agenda that would impact us. And unfortunately, the audio got turned on immediately after the election results were talked about. So I am so thankful that Ann and Linda were able to go up and talk in person, because we didn't really get much information via the meeting.
And one of the important pieces was clarifying with Lyman Duncan which report he presented to the commission, which is why we were trying to jump on and listen to his report. But as Erin said, they were muted, and the mute was taken off just after Lyman stopped speaking.
Excuse me. It's like a sitcom here.
All right, turning to number 11 under new business, a discussion of work sessions for December 2023 and January 2024. We have this one coming up on Friday, December 8th. And quite honestly, when I threw that date out, I had not thought about the food pantry or the recycling being on the same day. I'm hopeful if we start at 9 that we can move relatively quickly through, although I'm anticipating a couple of hours. With that in mind, would people prefer to start at 8 and try to be through before 11? We wouldn't make the 9 o'clock till 11 o'clock work, but I'm fine because I wasn't planning on going to the pantry this time.
9. Well, I don't care. That's either way.
Well, let's just keep it at 9, since I'm not hearing anyone who wants to do it at 8. And I think all of these are for the work session are pretty much things to help us think about what 2024 is going to look like with Jen Davila and Britt Hornsby, and trying to figure out where we are on projects that Brant and Jim have been working on, and how the transition looks like. So if we focus toward that, we can probably kick through this in a couple of hours. And then you could go to the food pantry at that point. And then for the rest of the council who is remaining, so the last 3 standing, Linda, Luanne, and myself, be thinking about the January, what we might need to be looking at, because we'll have, and certainly Erin, the strategic planning piece that's got to fit into here. And not wanting to overwhelm 2 new council members, but I'd like to, when we're talking at the work session, maybe spend 5 minutes on what January might look like for getting everybody up to speed. Any other thoughts on that? And that kind of ties to 12. Just a reminder, and this is much more for me to remind myself that this has to be done rather than on January 1st, my remembering that on the 2nd we have to set the meeting dates and times for 2024. We have to vote on a mayor pro tem. We have to talk about disclosures of conflict of interest. Pretty much anything we can think of that we usually do in January. So I just wanted to throw this out to remind everyone that first meeting on the 2nd, in addition to swearing in Jen and Britt, we'll have all this other little paper stuff that we need to do. Any questions or thoughts on that?
You might add Zion's. We have to, or the approval of what bank we want to continue with.
Yep. And that also signatories on the bank account. Good. Yeah, glad I threw that off. If anybody thinks of anything else, just let me know so that when we get to January 2nd, we've covered all the kind of required things we need to do. And I'm sure Jim and Brant will be sitting back in their lounge chairs listening to us talk and laughing.
I just
I
want
doubt
you guys to know the three of y'all got reelected. So and Jim and I didn't, so it's good.
But we'll be sitting in our lounge chairs. I don't know about listening.
Oh, although don't they have to be on for the first 5 minutes?
They do.
So
For the first 5 minutes of what?
of the next meeting or the meeting in January, you have to be on for the first piece to vote
While
on.
they pass everything off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that. I'll remind us all. Thanks, Linda. That's a good reminder. And that's particularly important if we were not to have like if you two weren't there and one of us couldn't be, we wouldn't have a quorum. And we have to have these folks sworn in as soon as reasonably possible. So good reminder, Linda. So this month I got several emails on the state subdivision ordinance funding assistance options. So the legislature has imposed some new requirements for subdivision ordinances, and we had two companies already who've reached out. One is Karen Peterson from Sunrise, and the other is Michael Hansen, who is with the Hansen Planning Group, but he's also a member of Rural Community Consultants who we've worked with before. So I talked to Karen Peterson from Sunrise when we were at the Utah League annual conference, and we've worked with Michael Hansen through Rural Community. They both those entities were fully funded to provide professional support to communities to do the subdivision work. This is one of the very few funded mandates that the state did this year. So we would get free subdivision go over. I reached out to Chris because I didn't want to feel like we were forum shopping to avoid paying fees to Chris to do it. And Chris said, you know, the changes are so well-defined and basic that he wouldn't feel slighted at all if we went with someone that could do it for no charge. And quite honestly, Chris is going to have his hands full with everything we've got going on in the next few months. This has to be done by the end of 2024, but the sooner we get in line, the better it would be. So I don't know if anybody has a preference, or do you want me to reach out to both of them and look at what their schedules look like and bring it back? Does somebody else want to do that? I can reach out to both Sunrise and Hansen and see like what the time requirements are and what their thoughts are. But since they're free, I think it's just a matter of us making a decision who we want to sign on with.
And will that be something that will be working with them, or will this be a planning and zoning?
That's a good question. I don't know. Probably planning and zoning, because it would be a revision to the subdivision. But I think we need to make the decision as to what the consultant is, which consultant.
Okay, I just wonder if maybe one of them would want to sit in with you on discussing with them or something that might help to see.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Let me reach out to Amanda Podmore and see who would like to sit in. Or maybe they want to invite the two groups to present at planning and zoning, since we've got a year here. I don't know that we want to take it because I'm sure they're going to get jammed up with the really big areas like Salt Lake City or whoever the bigger areas are that want this done. That's good. I'll talk with Amanda. They might want to just put it on and do the interviews themselves and then make a recommendation to us.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. If there's nothing else on that. Number 14, deposit to Zions by Woody Lee and to discuss a policy for deposits and withdrawals from the joint account with UDB. Linda, why don't you start with what happened, how you noticed this?
So I am on our different financial things, sometimes daily, but quite a bit. And especially as we approach the end of a month, because we have to, I'm getting ready to reconcile, and noticed in our acquisitions and development checking account, a deposit that was a second party check. It was from Ute Mountain to Denebakea. And and Woody signed it into our account. And so that was pretty confusing why that happened. Anne reached out to Woody, Anne and Erin, I think, reached out to Woody, checked with Chris. Ultimately, there was a new teller at our bank. And when he deposited this check, she didn't check to see if Woody had more than one account. And so she just put it in the first account that came up. And so a day or two later, they removed it, and it's very clear on our account that it was teller error.
So we can correct that with a journal entry?
It's corrected, yeah, on
Thank
everything.
you. Very good. Very good.
And Jim reached out to Woody as well. I think probably Woody felt like we were all dogging him, but so then Erin might want to, I'm sure will want to add to what Zion told us the process is, because in part because it was a third party check from one entity to another entity signed off by one individual, deposited into a joint account that confuses our accounting system. We've talked about we need to have a more detailed step-by-step process for how we're handling deposit and withdrawals from the joint fund, because like Linda said, it was this check was deposited, and had it been a deposit that was really intended for the joint account, we wouldn't be able to do the paper trail of how it came in, where it went, how it got assigned. And if someone wasn't as diligent as Linda, it might go unseen for a couple of months. So I meant to have a draft policy written, but I'm just going to say I just ran out of time with the election stuff, having a priority. So I'll work on that, and I'll talk with, again, probably with Dave Sanderson, our accountant, about what all we would need to detail. And then we probably should include that in a DRC meeting so that only the town makes the deposits, and then for withdrawals, the signatories for the entities would make any withdrawals or movement of money. Erin, do you want to jump in and add some of this detail?
Just for the folks listening, so the importance of, and you all have spoken to this very well, but the importance of ensuring that we know exactly what's moving in and out of our accounts is really important to protecting the municipality against fraud. And so I'd love to be like, oh, well, it's for our auditors, but that's not true at all. It's to ensure that we know what's going on with our bookkeeping system. And so while something like this very well could be audited, I cannot stress the importance enough of ensuring that we have a diligent paper trail of not only what's moving in, but what's moving out, why it's happening. It would, all the usual accounting stuff, but to the umpteenth degree, because this is municipal finance. And certainly as we continue to work with a joint entity who has perhaps looser restrictions than what a municipality would expect, I would encourage the council to continue to engage in explaining to our partners why this is so important. And so while the policies are pertinent, it is important to explain why it is so important that we do, that we have the steps that we have and people are following them. And so while this was made in error, clearly it's a good indication of needing to put some additional procedures in place.
Lou, did you have a question?
I'm just clarifying one. Did I hear you say that they would not be able to deposit into it? I thought I understood it was a joint account. Could both withdraw, can both deposit. Did I just mishear that?
No, you didn't. If UDB makes a deposit, there's no paper trail from us into Polaris or for Linda's bookkeeping. So if they have funds, they should transmit them to the town to make that deposit. There's no reason it can't be a joint trip up to Zion. But the problem is that Linda doesn't have any information about what that deposit is for. Like she labels what the deposits are made for. It goes into Polaris, goes into, record keeping. And when you just get $37,000 and you don't know where it came in. And the other piece is, personally, as a lawyer, I would not want to see a whole bunch of third-party checks going into that account. It makes me very uncomfortable.
Hopefully the teller error won't occur again and we can get this safeguards in place and we'll be fine.
Anything else on that? All right, then. Jim, report on the design review meeting today.
Thank you. We had about a 45-minute meeting today. We met a Miss Janet Chi, who is the new executive director of UDB. Don't really know a lot about her. She was somewhat quiet during the meeting, listening. But one thing that she did mention is that she will make a second trip up to Zion's and fill out a signature card for, she wasn't aware that she had to do a signature card for the joint account. And so she will be doing that. She seems very businesslike and will be doing that. This is as of today, or it is now in effect. It is not going to wait till January. She is the executive director now. The second item were the grants discussion, and that centered on the EPA mostly. And with regard to the demo and other items, I'll be talking about the design. I'll be segueing into number 16, the preliminary design. But Damien is going to be in town on the 14th, 15th, and 16th of this month, and he'll be going on the walkthrough. We learned that we're about 2 months away probably from funds as administrative needs need to be met, sort of red tape stuff, as I understand it. We have to jump through some hoops, but won't be getting any cash for a couple of months, which actually gives us some time, as we'll discover here. The rural opportunity application, the economic development application, Erin discussed that, and that's really great. I saw it, I read it, and it looks like everything is there for it to be a quality effort. So we'll see if it comes through. We had a little bit of discussion on the AmeriCorps team. Melanie was in on the meeting today, and the food person, and she, I guess she's been notified of this. I don't know, but she's in there to supervise them at the CCC when they come in to do the work. The outside space was discussed very briefly. UDB actually has a firewood report that talks about the initiative to provide firewood, the whatever the BLM is calling it, the reduction in burnables, whatever. But we haven't heard from them, so nothing is happening on that front. But I did ask to see the firewood report. That would be fun to look at. CCC needs the December 15th walkthrough will be at 9 a.m. It sounded like that's what people wanted to do, so we moved that back, and if that's okay, there's going to be a walkthrough for people who are involved in that and people who are interested, as I understand it. With regard to the initial design, and that's number 16, it's a discussion of a preliminary design for the Cooperative Cultural Center. I had the occasion to meet with Hiroko inadvertently. It wasn't an appointment, but we happened to meet in front of the CCC, and I was delivering some stuff that had been donated, and she was very interested in the interior, and we did a little tour, and she seemed to really be interested in participating in any design effort that we are doing, just an upfront design. And it occurs to me that we're going to probably need, or it would probably be very useful, and this is the number 16 on our agenda today, this preliminary design. It would be very useful possibly to have a preliminary rendering of what it is that the two parties are looking for in the CCC. And if we've got a little time and Design Build Utah is inclined, we can probably get something that is not going to cost anything. And we all know about the quality of the product that Design Build Utah provides. And the design review committee today kind of gave the go-ahead for me to explore that a little bit more with Design Build Utah, and if that is something that this council is willing to explore without making any commitments or anything, I'd be happy to do that. I think it would, whatever occurs with regard to the CCC in terms of building, the first thing that's going to happen is that either an architect, probably an architect, or an engineer, or maybe both, are going to have to know what it is that we want this to look like. And I think that Design Build Utah might be very useful in providing drawings of what that might be, and preliminary designs. So that's what number 16 is all about. And we've got approval from the DRC. The last thing we were talking about was the ceiling demolition. Damien really wants to look more closely at that, as do I. I haven't gotten a chance to get over there with a ladder. I've been kind of busy. That isn't the last thing we looked at, we talked about. But anyway, we'll be looking at that on December 15th and seeing if those are actually structural members or if they are simply suspension members that can be removed easily by the AmeriCorps folks. Brant, did you have a question as I'm going along here?
No, after you finish, I was just going to reiterate that I like the idea of drawings. I would encourage Hiroko to meet with Damien for those walkthroughs and see if we can get enough information. But I love the idea of some pictures. We need pictures badly.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The last thing is the large highway sign came up as one of the CCC needs, and it turns out that Erin was astute enough to, I assume, to include about 12 grand in that rural community opportunity grant for signage, and we'll probably be able to use, if we get that, that'll be very useful. So that was a good idea there, Erin. And that's about it. We adjourned at 2:50. There were some good discussions. Woody was present, and so was Janet. She was not. She did not introduce herself technically, but I'm sure that we'll know more about Janet Chi as we go along. Any other questions?
Good job, Jim.
Luanne?
Yeah, just did you say the walkthrough's December 15th at 9 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay.
That is.
Okay.
That's the plan, yeah.
All right. And then my other, encouragement is to get Hiroko, their team. I think that's a great idea to get, and you call it a preliminary rendering. And I think that's a good thing that we need to look at, because I'm a little bit concerned with the outdoor spaces and the indoor spaces, that things get built in them before there's a bigger picture plan.
Right.
I mean, like the garden thing is a little worrisome to me, because you put a lot of work into a garden and somebody can pay right over it. Next thing you know, the toilets, the little itty bitty toilets, there's a lot of people wanting the daycare. It could be that would just be worked right in, and we wouldn't need to double dip in that money to put them all back in again. So it would be nice to me, I think, before we take out stuff that might be useful, to have somebody look at it and say, hey, let's keep this here, let's take that out.
Yeah. Well, this isn't a decision that has to be made tonight at all, but it is very clear that the initial design, in my mind, is going to be a three-way conversation between a professional and the two entities, UDB and Town of Bluff, and it might be a kind of an extensive conversation. It might take time, and Design Build Utah is here in town. They are local. They are here, and that is just something that's going to take some time to accomplish, to really get that rendering that we're thinking about done.
Yeah, I don't think we need to rush it, but I do think before we do other things. But that, when we were talking with the school district and with the town, the residents, that was one of the things that, the school, the university site there with Design Build, they're there. Yes, tomorrow's there. Then the fort is next door, and the community center is there. So it makes a triangle of sort that ties them together with the project, and they could use it for their groups. They could, that would be a good. They've lived here. They know, they've got students. Anyway, I think that would be a great partnership to really try to firm up if we can.
Any other questions? I think that takes care of, I hope, 15 and 16, Mayor. Thank you.
Well, if there are no other questions, then let's move to 17. Report on November 13th, 2023 Tourism Tax Board and the November 14th, 2023 County Economic Board meeting. Linda?
The Tourism Tax Board makes decisions about marketing. And let's see, I kind of wrote this down because it's hard for me to take minutes and talk and remember what I said. So the Tourism Tax Board makes decisions about marketing and increasing the TRT tax. We discuss the areas and type of marketing that has been planned. A concern is the possible sale of Gouldings to the Navajo Nation. Up to 35% of our TRT tax funding for the county is from Gouldings. If the Navajo Nation bought Gouldings and it somehow became an entity that we couldn't get this tax from, we're talking about, something like $1 million. So that's a concern that we're watching. In the economic development meeting, we discussed the new grant that's going to be available this month. This is the third time we've done this grant. It is for businesses. There's been some changes. We've put a $60,000 cap on it on requests because we've had people in the last round. Last year, we had people asking for the entire amount, asking for $100,000. That's not the intent of this. The intent is to help local business. And so the total of the grant is about $173,000, and the deadline is January 17th. So it will be opening in the next week or two. Any questions?
I don't have any. I'm assuming, Linda, there'll be some kind of a blast out to businesses in the community.
Yeah.
Okay, then moving to number 18, report on the renewal of short-term rentals and business licenses for 2024. Actually, Linda, you've got the next three.
Yeah. So the short-term renewal letters have all gone out. They should be hitting mailboxes today and tomorrow. Previously, I had done them email, and so I'm trying this to see if it's more efficient. And so this is just the same as I do every year. The council adopted a fee schedule this year, and the new fee for business licenses is $25. And those letters will start going out this week also.
Any questions for Linda? All right, then, transfer of gravel sales tax. Linda?
So this might be slightly more interesting, maybe not, but in July, we were supposed to get a gravel tax, and the gravel tax is for towns and cities that have gravel operations, and it goes into our roads account so that, because the gravel trucks are really hard on roads, so it's supposed to help a little bit. So I was watching for it in July, didn't see it, just looked from time to time, because our roads money goes directly into our roads account. It doesn't come as a check. It's just an electronic transfer. And so finally talked to Jim Clayton, and it did come in July, but it came in a form, it came with the sales tax, and it was, let me read what it's called, what they said. Balance owing from prior periods, which is how I missed it, because it says nothing about roads, gravel, or anything. So anyway, this last week I moved it. Our sales tax goes into our PTIF account. And so I had to learn how to move it out of the PTIF account, which is connected to the general fund. Went into the general fund. From there, I had to take it out and put it in our roads account. So it's in roads where it's supposed to be. But then I also had to do that with the bank and Polaris. So everything is in the right place now. It was almost $4,000. And so we now have about a little more than $99,000 in roads.
Question, Linda. Are they, the way you spend it, the same as the road fund? So it is essentially a road fund.
Right.
Asset. Okay, good. So
Yeah.
all the regulations apply to road funds, apply to it.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then, Linda, November financial report.
Normally, I do the financial report the third meeting of the month, and we canceled that meeting. So this is from last month. We would have done it mid-month, and so there were a lot of bills. So are there any questions? And can I have someone motion to approve?
No questions. Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or thoughts? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, there are a couple of, oh, it's unanimous. There are a couple of others, so don't everybody jump off. Just a reminder that there's the work session on December 8th, 2023 at 9 a.m. If you're here in town, it would be helpful to have you come to the community center. If you're not, we'll definitely have it set up so you can participate virtually. Jen Davila and Britt Hornsby have both said they can be there, so that's good. It gives us a chance to talk about any of the transition issues. There's the newly elected officials training on December 16th, 2023, and that's virtual from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. You could go to Salt Lake City the week before, that Saturday before, so the 9th. Same time frame, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The books, okay, so there's a $45 fee for the virtual, $60 fee for the in-person. I haven't completely been able to connect with Utah League of Cities and Towns, but from everything I can see, they have not revised the handbook. So the handbook that we five all have and that P&Z has, that is the same handbook that they will be giving out, which is what that fee covers, is the handbook and the refreshments and all that. And since we're virtual, they knock it down a little bit. But I don't know how many of us need to actually register and pay $45. We could just get it on one computer and watch it. But it's up to you. If you want to have me put it on the credit card, get a hold of me, and that way you don't have to do a reimbursement. Put it on the office credit card and tell me if it's virtual or in person. And then the last thing related to meetings is that we are scheduled for a meeting next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Twin Rocks is doing a dinner for food pantry and volunteers at 6 o'clock. And so I was wondering, I'm going to ask Fran and Jenny if they would be willing to move it to 5:30, and we would start our meeting at 6:30 for those folks who would like to go. And so that they could do both and not have to rush over or rush back to listen. So I would like, if you want me to do that, I would like to have a vote that would say we would move our meeting to 5:30 if Jenny and Francis are willing to do that or able to do that. Because
move our meeting to 5:30 or move the meeting to 6:30?
The meeting to 6:30, right. I would need a vote for that.
I'll make a motion that we move that next meeting to 6:30, Mayor.
Is that conditioned upon?
Yes.
Them? Okay. Starting at 5:30. Okay. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Any discussion or questions on that? So all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So I'll talk with Jenny and Francis. Does anybody else have an other?
We need a little reminder to everybody keep working on dark sky.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
It's 7:28.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I'm hanging up and turning off the recorder. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you,
Appreciate it. Bye.